Welcome to my fourth video in the series on the local church and God's worldwide movement. In the first video, we looked at the biblical basis for a church's involvement in what God is doing around the world. And then the next two videos looked at how to develop a strategy for a church's involvement in what God's doing. In this video, I'd like to look at a particular issue which often gets in the way when churches try to take a new approach, try to get newly involved in mission, and that's the question of legacy missionaries. Now, a legacy missionary is someone who may be doing very vital work. It's not saying their work isn't good, but it's a missionary for whom the contact with the church is not what it once was. It's not living, it's not active, it's not committed on either side. Now, there's all sorts of reasons why this could happen. Often a church will desire to get involved in supporting mission, and they'll scout around to find a missionary they can support. It might be a friend of the pastor, a friend of a former church member. It could be that nobody knows why the church is supporting this particular missionary, but they always have done. But at some point there was a good reason to do so. But over time, the connection has faded. Now, there can be all sorts of reasons why this happens. It could be that the missionary is not as committed to communicating with their supporting churches. It could be that the church has lapsed in their communication. And in all probability, it goes both ways, that both church and missionary have not kept in contact in the way that they could have done. But over time, the relationship fades. Now, this is a problem for churches who want to rethink their approach to mission, because very often a large slice of their time, and in particular their budget, can be given over to supporting somebody with whom they don't really have a deep connection. And it could be that they would like to get involved in something entirely new, a new part of the world, a new type of ministry, but they feel they can't because they have to keep supporting this particular legacy missionary. So what do? What can you do in that sort of situation? Now, the simplest solution is to try and reinvigorate the relationship. Find a way to breathe new life into it so that you can be supporting that person. But often that's not possible, and it could be too that really the church feels that that's not where they want to be anymore. Their interests have moved on. In that case, the best thing to do is just stop supporting the missionary. Just because you once supported a mission partner doesn't mean that you have to continue to do so forever. Now, if you stop supporting a missionary, there will inevitably be one or two members in the congregation who are unhappy. That's natural. And it takes time to explain to them the reasons. But if it's shown that by not supporting a missionary who's always been on the books, you're able to breathe new life into your involvement in world mission, that should go somewhere to dealing with the issue. You also need to communicate with the missionary. Don't just stop sending the checks. Give them some warning. Talk to them. Perhaps invite them along to church to preach at a farewell service, to close the relationship in some sort of celebration. Provide them a present for the family or some sort of gift to show that the relationship is ending well. But you're not obligated to keep supporting someone because you always have done. Now, there's a couple of caveats to that. It is a lot more complex if this legacy missionary is someone that your church has set aside for mission work in the first place. If you're the ones who've laid hands on them and committed them to the Lord's service, you can't just suddenly say you're going to stop supporting them. You need to take time over that one. You need to help them think through. If you really are in a position where you're no longer saying you can support them in mission work, either you have to help them find other support, or help them to transition to a new career, provide career counselling or something like that. But you do have to provide a soft landing if these are your own missionaries. The second caveat, it goes without saying, I think, that anybody who calls themselves evangelical should be involved in world mission in some some way. Closing off your relationship with a legacy missionary shouldn't be the same as closing off your relationship with what God's doing in the world. The whole purpose of finishing a legacy relationship is so that you can do something new. Now, just one last thought. You might think that I'm being slightly cruel in saying all this, saying that you can stop supporting missionaries. Well, I am a missionary, and we've had churches who supported us and who no longer support us, and it isn't the end of the world. It can be difficult. You miss, the money. It's not easy. But then again, it's always a good reminder that our support and our income comes from God ultimately, and not from the people who provide finance for us. We rejoice in good relationships with churches, and we rejoice when churches are honest enough to say to us, we've supported you for this long, but it's time to move on. So, legacy missionaries, you don't have to keep supporting them, but you do have to keep involved in what God's doing around them.